They switched up the furniture on us today. We're so far away. This is not very intimate. So, David, welcome. This is kind of your first big thing, right, with the new gig. You've been with Zynga for about a month now. Is that right?
A little over a month.
Okay. And so, you're the Senior Vice President of Mobile, and you wasted, little time really getting involved with the company. You announced the new toy deal. And so, do you want to talk a little bit about that? What was the impetus behind that? The terms weren't disclosed, right? You can feel free to disclose those if you want right now. But yeah, go into it a little bit.
Sure. Last week was a really big week for Zynga. We announced an acquisition of a company called New Toy. It's a company that's based in McKinney, Texas. Two co-founders, Paul and David Bettner. What they really created was very unique. I feel they've created one of the best mobile social gaming experiences that is out there today. Two franchises for those of you who know them. It's Words with Friends and Chess with Friends. Words with Friends is a game that's across iOS today. And it's one of the most popular games that we find on the iPad, iPhone, and Touch. They've got millions of users, and their users use their services for about an hour each day. So it is a very sticky service as well.
Right, and they also have WeRule. It's one of their.
They also were one of the creators of WeRule.
And so you guys are basically turning that into Zynga with Friends, right? And they're going to be a separate kind of studio that's run still out of Texas. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's part of our investment into mobile. So they've created a really unique mobile-first experience, and we want to leverage that. And so what we have done is we've renamed the studio Zynga with Friends, and we're going to keep that team intact and actually continue to invest in that team and vice versa.
And yeah, so they're going to be continuing to develop their own mobile products and doing that first, kind of the mobile first idea. I know like Fred Wilson and some other people have written recently about the whole concept of maybe developing for mobile devices first instead of doing web-based development, as Zynga has traditionally done. So is that really the idea there? They're going to be focused on mobile first and then maybe moving those properties into the web as you guys see it?
Well, I think there's, mobile is a huge and exciting opportunity for Zynga today. What you're seeing is really the first of our investments into mobile. They, again, have a huge user base for us to leverage. And I think what you're going to see is they've got a bunch of new IP that I'm really excited about, and you're going to have to wait and see it. But really what we want to do in the beginning is really leverage what they've built. It's incredible. And they also have an incredible team that's really focused on mobile.
Is it going to be like checkers with friends, or is it?
I would say stay tuned.
Okay. And so obviously they've been really iPhone focused, though. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the other platforms, like what your thoughts are on that? Obviously iPhone is huge, but Android, there was the news today that they're activating 300,000 devices a day now. So they're kind of blowing it out of the water. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think if you take a step back and think about the vision of Zynga as a whole, what you've probably heard Mark Pincus talk about is connecting the world through games. And as we think about what it means for us in mobile today, it's really an extension of that onto any device and any platform. We are very committed to creating the right types of experiences for users on any type of different platform. We've mostly been focused to date on the iPhone. And it's been a great platform for us to kickstart some of our services, and some of our most popular games have been launched there, like Farmville. We've launched that on the iPhone and on the iPad. We are looking to expand and to move to different platforms. We're going to take one of our earliest games and one of our most successful games, Mafia, and you'll see that on the Android platform later this month.
And that's going to be the first one that's actually on that platform.
That's right.
Yeah. And what about some of the other ones? Obviously we're in Europe. Nokia is huge, and we've got the other things coming out: Windows Phone, BlackBerry. You guys, it's kind of you're taking iPhone first, then expanding to Android. But are you definitely seriously considering all of the platforms across?
Well, I think our goal is to really understand, especially in mobile, the limitations of devices. I think today many of us create mobile experiences, especially if you look at the ones that Zynga has created for smartphones. But the reality is a lot of smartphone functionality is moving to feature phones and feature phones to low-end devices. What we're also seeing is a huge amount of interest from our user base, not only in the US, but international as well. And as we start to think across international territories, we're going to have to think about some of the other providers that are out there because our users are actually trying to access our services from those different platforms, and we want to make sure we offer seamless experiences to them.
Okay, yeah, so before we dive a little bit more into kind of the international scope of all this, wanted to talk about where you actually came from, because that was obviously Yahoo, and you were very big there. I mean, you were there for 10 years. And of course, there's been quite a bit of talk recently because you were one of the 3 big executives that left recently. So, do you want to talk a little about that? I think everyone who just reads sites like TechCrunch might think that it's kind of like a hellhole there right now. But how are things actually going? And talk a little bit about your decision to leave after all that time.
Well, I was at Yahoo for a little over 10 years. It was a great experience. I had the opportunity to not only work in the US, but internationally as well. It's been a few months since I left, so it's hard for me to comment on the current state because a lot changes.
So it only might be a chaotic hellhole right now.
No,
you're not sure?
I'm not going to comment on some of the, but I would tell you I wish them the best.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair.
That's it.
All right, but over there you were in charge of some of the biggest properties. You were in charge of the front page. You were in charge of things like finance, right? Why walk away from that and just get into kind of only mobile? I know you were doing mobile stuff there as well, but is that just kind of like you thought that would be the next huge opportunity and something you could do better with Zynga?
Well, I've met Mark many months ago. And I've always been impressed with Zynga and all the things that it stands for today. I actually think, and it was at your conference, that Bing Gordon said it very well when he just talked about what he was looking for as an investment many years ago when the company was first starting. Mm-hmm. He talked about how he was looking for 4 different types of investments. Investments across companies that could be analytics, new IP, things across social and different payment mechanisms, and also something that inherently, was created around a great user experience. What he found was all of that bundled really into one company, and that's what you see in Zynga today. And, the more time I spent with Mark and the management team and just employees in the company, the more and more I just became super impressed with what they were doing and really thought about it truly is a company that could connect the world through games.
But that said, while they're bundling everything together, they really didn't have a strong mobile presence. They had just, pretty recently launched Farmville for iPhone, and that's doing very well, from all the stats and everything. But that was kind of your thing. You came in there and saw that they really needed to do more, right?
I agree. And there's a huge opportunity for Zynga today in mobile. The way I think about it is it's probably, when you think of mobile gaming, the next great social frontier for it. And the reality is Zynga today has a huge subscriber base across the PC. There's been numbers that have been shared by Mark, but on a monthly basis, there are over 200 million people playing or on the Zynga network every month. And actually, just yesterday, when I checked, there were about 45 million people in terms of what we call DAUs, which are daily active users. So you could see that there is a huge potential to bring that to mobile.
And and a part of that move to mobile too is a way to diversify Zynga kind of away from Facebook. Obviously, it's been hugely associated with Facebook, and that's the main driver of the platform. But as you move more into mobile and move on to other things like Yahoo Games, I think some Zynga games are on. How important is it to move away from that? I know you guys have a strategic deal with Facebook to do things going forward, but how important are the other platforms?
MG, I would say it's less about diversifying away. Mm-hmm. And one of the core things of the company today, it's been very focused on partnerships. And when you think about what the company stands for in terms of being social, connecting the world through friends, well, the reality is social equals Facebook. And Facebook has been a tremendous partner for Zynga today. But that's not to say that we don't have other users looking to access our services from other networks. And we did announce and launch a partnership with Yahoo. We had 2 titles that launched with them. It was Fishville and also Mafia Wars.
Did
and
you
we
do
also,
that deal from the Yahoo side, or were you on the Zynga side?
No.
Okay.
And there was also another thing that they launched with MySpace, which was on Mafia as well.
Right.
So they are looking, because there are users on other networks, but primarily Facebook has been a tremendous partner for Zynga.
What about Facebook and mobile, though, the two together? Because obviously they're making huge strides to try and cement themselves as not only the social glue for the social web, but also for the mobile web. And they're doing things with Connect and other services where they're trying to really tightly integrate with some of the key devices out there right now. Are you guys working with them on some of those things at all, like single sign-on or the easy sign-on thing that they've been doing?
Well, I think if there's things that we can leverage that make it better and easier from a user experience, we're definitely going to look at those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's part of any good partnership. There's going to be tons of ideas that are thrown out, and I think what you're going to see is when you take it from a customer experience and developing the best customer experience we can provide, and if it's seamless and easy to use, especially on a mobile device where the form factors are different, the amount of time and the features and functionality, what you're actually going to use it for is going to be very different from the PC. We're always going to take a look at things that make it more seamless and easy for the end user.
Gotcha. Yeah, moving, I guess, a little bit into the international markets. You launched Farmville in Japan on mobile only first, right? Is that right?
Yeah, it was part of last week.
Mm-hmm.
We launched Farmville. It's translated into Farm Village in Japan. It's a mobile-first experience. Very excited about it. It's through one of our studios there. We have a partnership with SoftBank there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just part of what I was talking about earlier in terms of us focusing on international as
Mm-hmm.
well. And so we're very excited to see how that goes.
Talk a little bit about the decision, though, to go mobile only first there. Is that kind of a region-by-region thing you guys are thinking about, because the mobile experience there is different than it is in other countries in the West?
Well, I think you're going to see, that differ in terms of regions. In Asia today, many folks will access the web or those services first on their mobile device and then move to a PC. It's just the sheer law of numbers. And what we're seeing there, and then that also means that we're going to have to diversify away from some of the smartphones to make sure that
Right.
we're giving users the right type of experience on any device. It's not there today. We have a lot of work to do. But I believe the team is off to a great start.
Talk a little bit about, I guess, Farm Village or Farmville in Japan. How is that? Is that mainly on smartphones right now, or is that on other feature phones too?
No, it's more geared towards smartphones today.
Yeah.
But what you will see is, we look to extend that over time.
Okay. So you also just more recently launched Cityville in multiple markets, and this was kind of one of the first real launches that you had that was doing different regions of the world. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. We're very excited. We launched Cityville less than a week ago, last week. It has been the fastest growing game to date. Yesterday we crossed over 3 million daily active users on on Cityville. And we also launched it globally. So it was launched across 5 different languages. It was launched across French, Italian, German, and Spanish. Mm-hmm. And we're very excited about that. And it just comes to show you that we are thinking about our products more internationally. And it also coincides with our user base. So we do have a user base today, as I mentioned, that's over 200 million monthly uniques. Mm-hmm. An interesting stat, if you break that down further, is that when you dive into the user base, more than 2/3 of that user base, their native language is not English, so they're non-English speakers. So our users are actually telling us that you need to create localized experiences from us. We're actually coming from other parts of the world. And so those are some interesting stats for us to take a look at, because most of the times when people think of Zynga today, they think of it as primarily being US-based, but that's not necessarily the case.
But that said, US is still the biggest single country, right?
Sure,
yeah.
Sure, for us today.
Right, and then I'm assuming you have other things like UK and stuff, but France is huge, right?
That's right.
That's one of the biggest
It's one
ones.
of our top 10 countries.
Okay, and in terms of areas of expansion, though, I would assume that Asia is a huge push for you. Is that like the number one?
Yeah, and it's even how we think about our studios. Mm-hmm. Zynga today has 13 studios that are either working on new, existing IP, or a little of both. 5 of those studios are based outside of the US. They're based in places like Japan, China, India, and Germany. So that's just to name a few.
Okay. And I know I had a little note that I took down that poker is it's big in Taiwan. Is that right? You launched that in Taiwan? Is that one of the big properties?
You know, many of the titles actually are big overseas.
Yeah.
Poker was one of the first franchises that we launched as a company, and has just seen, you know, global success.
And talk a little bit about maybe the monetization aspect of the Asian markets in particular, because there's such a key focus on virtual goods over there, and maybe that's a little bit easier to monetize than it is currently in the Western world. Like, what are you guys thinking about that?
Well, I think there's a difference between how we view how we view mobile and the PC today. And I think when you take even a step back beyond that, is ultimately it's all about the product experience. So there are different forms of monetization on mobile from the PC. Today, what you see in mobile today, we do monetize a few different ways that differ from the PC. There will be a little bit of advertising, there will be some virtual currency, but ultimately that's ultimately not the goal for mobile today. It's about just creating a killer user experience and increasing market share.
And I talked yesterday with Rovio was on stage, and we did a talk about Angry Birds, and they were kind of saying that they were blown away by the advertising experience on mobile devices versus, they had started by launching Angry Birds as an iPhone application, as a paid application in the App Store. But because Android didn't really have all the things in place that they needed to launch it as a paid application, certainly not all the markets were a big problem. I mean, a little bit of your thoughts on that. How big is the advertising experience in mobile specifically? Like, I assume that Zynga is probably never going to launch like a paid application on the App Store, though I don't know if you're necessarily opposed to it. But is advertising one of the biggest plays?
Well, we're not opposed to looking at different, I would say, different models. The company we acquired, NewToy, does have a paid application today so the way NewToy monetizes today is on Words with Friends. Most of that is through advertising. There are interstitials in place between moves, and there isn't a virtual currency aspect to what they do today. And then they have a paid application which actually gets rid of a lot of that. The fact of the matter is, what's great about mobile is you can experiment, and there's different types of experimentation we're going to do. But ultimately, we don't want to detract anything from the user experience, and we do recognize, look, you have a different size game board, for example. So we want to optimize that experience, and over time, we will look into different monetization aspects.
And a lot has been made about Zynga's overall revenues, which I think they spread across the whole spectrum of guesses as of right now. I'm sure you were briefed maybe a little bit on them when you joined the company. You can feel free to talk about those, but I don't think that you will. But go ahead. And more importantly, right now mobile has to be a very minuscule part of that, I assume. Is that fair to say?
Well, I think it's fair to say in mobile that we're just getting started.
Okay.
Right. So. That's what's great about being a private company. We can sit here and just really focus on developing the best user experience. I think Mark Pincus said it really well when he talked about internet treasures. We're trying to build a company. For those of you who don't know, he's talked about internet treasures before. There are certain brands or services where you just can't live without. So there are certain things you couldn't imagine living without. I've seen people here in the audience working on their iPads, Apple devices, your BlackBerry, your iPhone. Maybe it's Google Search, maybe it's Facebook. But we also want to build an internet treasure for social gaming. And that's what we're focused on.
Okay, and one of the other things Mark has talked about recently was this new dog-activated idea. So as I understand it, or as I think I understand it, it's basically kind of a similar idea to what Zynga Connect might be, like a way but internally, because you would be spanning across all of your games, right, and being able to socially connect across all the different games and have users talk to one another. Is that more or less right?
I think what he means when he talks about dog activated, I think he's talked about this a little, is just the fact that when you see the dog, and that is basically the mascot for Zynga today, is you think about something that's fun, you think about something that's social, and that's a place where you can go and see many different types of games on the Zynga platform. And that's pretty much at a high level what we think about when we think about dog activated.
Can you go any deeper though? Is kind of the idea behind it that you would be able to connect if someone is playing a game on their mobile device and someone is playing on Facebook? Would you be able to talk and connect with them? Is that something you guys are looking at?
It's a little bit of speculation, and I think that's a little bit more for MJ. You're gonna have to wait and see on that one.
Okay. So let's go on to one of the new things that launched recently, a couple days ago, was the Chrome Web Store. I think you guys have one. You might have Farmville in there right now or something, but it's really only. It seems like it was. It's something you can install, but it's really just a link to the website. Is that right? And what are your thoughts on that kind of? Mozilla is also launching the Open Web Store thing. Talk a little bit about that and kind of these standalone web apps. Like, are you guys going to explore that a little bit?
Well, I just think it's part of being available on any platform, and there's many types of new technologies that are coming out that will let you connect and give you different types of browse experiences. We're always going to look and explore those from a customer side, because we're always going to think about from a customer experience first and how to better that user experience. So I can't comment on speculation because there's nothing that's been announced, but we're always going to think about enhancing that user experience, and there's just lots and lots of cool technology, many even things that you've heard on stage earlier today about ways that you can connect easier and faster to the net.
And let's talk about Google for a little bit. So Google invested in Zynga. I think, if it hasn't been confirmed yet, I'm pretty sure Marissa said it on stage yesterday to Mike, that the company itself and not Google Ventures actually did it. So what's the relationship like there? Is it pretty cozy? Obviously, you just talked a little bit about the Chrome Web Store or whatnot, but is that a key partnership going forward with what you guys are going to be doing?
Well, we haven't announced, and I can't comment on partnerships that haven't been announced. But
come on, Marissa did it yesterday on stage. You can talk
Marissa.
A little bit about it. Right.
But we are a very partnership-centric company. And if you just take a step back, Google's done amazing things on search. They're very innovative. But the fact is, we haven't publicly announced anything.
Okay, but I guess extending off of that, though, still a bit, I am a little curious as to why there hasn't been a focus on Android pretty much at all, like we talked about a little bit earlier. But I mean, was that, as I talked about yesterday with Angry Birds again, we were talking a little bit about the idea of fragmentation and how there's all these different devices out there now, and how that can be a little bit of a pain for developers. But they were in a little bit of a different boat because they had 12 people, now they have 40 or whatever they have. You guys have however many you have now. Several thousand people, a couple thousand people, I think, right? So you obviously have the resources to be able to do that. So why has there been that been held back? You started with the iPhone. Why not just go right away and full on at Android since it's growing so quickly?
Well, Android, and this is part of the Fred Wilson post you mentioned earlier, there is a lot of fragmentation in mobile today. I think what you have seen as a recognition by us and our user base is that we do have to build to Android. That's why we are releasing a title. I've only been here a month, and we're getting this title out later this month.
Faster.
But I would say stay tuned for more to come there.
Okay. All right. Well, that wraps up our time. So thanks a lot, David.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. And thank you for having Zynga speak first in Europe here at LeWeb.